Hello and welcome. I'm Thomas Porteous and you're watching NewsX World. Let's take a look at some of the top stories of the hour. President Donald Trump will address the United Nations General Assembly on Tuesday. His speech comes as leaders face crises in Gaza and Ukraine and as questions mount over whether the US, with its America First policy, is ready to lead on the world stage. Dozens of world leaders at the United Nations back Palestinian statehood in a landmark shift nearly 2 years into the Gaza war. France's Emmanuel Macron announces recognition, joining the UK, Canada and Australia, while the US and Israel remain opposed. Danish police say drones forced Copenhagen airport to shut down for hours, delaying 20,000 passengers. Officials say the flight patterns show a capable actor was behind the incident, but who was responsible remains unknown. Jimmy Kimmel will return to his late-night show tomorrow, days after a controversial suspension over jokes about Charlie Kirk's death. Disney says it has resolved the issue, but some US TV networks still refuse to air the program. Indonesia and the European Union have sealed a comprehensive trade deal in Bali. The agreement, signed by EU chief Marcos Sefcovic and Indonesian Minister Airlangga Hartarto, promises stronger economic ties amid rising US tariffs. Former Philippine President Rodrigo Duterte has been charged with crimes against humanity by the International Criminal Court. He is accused of being an indirect co-perpetrator in murders linked to his war on drugs, which killed thousands without trial. China has ordered schools and businesses shut in 10 cities as super typhoon Ragasa approaches the south. Authorities warn residents to stay indoors, with Shenzhen and other urban centres on high alert. Lawyers for hip-hop mogul Sean Diddy Combs have asked a US judge to impose just 14 months in prison after his conviction on prostitution-related charges. Combs, who was cleared of more serious trafficking and racketeering counts, faces up to 20 years. He is expected to appeal. Now we start this hour in New York, where US President Donald Trump is set to address the United Nations General Assembly on Tuesday as world leaders deal with crises from Gaza to Ukraine. Trump, speaking 8 months into his second term, is expected to criticize multilateral institutions, push for restrictive asylum policies, and meet with UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres for the very first time since returning to office. He will also hold bilateral talks with Ukraine and Argentina and a multilateral meeting with leaders from key Muslim countries amid global discussion on Palestinian statehood and ongoing conflicts. Let's hear what White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt had to say.
The President will also be hosting bilateral meetings with the UN Secretary General and the leaders of Ukraine, Argentina, and the European Union. The President will also later in the day hold a multilateral meeting with Qatar, the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, Indonesia, Turkey, Pakistan, Egypt, the UAE.
Now, White House officials say Trump will use his UN General Assembly speech to criticize globalist institutions and attack recent Western recognition of a Palestinian state, which he has described as a reward to Hamas. He will also highlight what he calls the renewal of American strength around the world. Let's take a listen.
The President will also touch upon how globalist institutions have significantly decayed the world order, and he will articulate his straightforward and constructive vision for the world.
We're now joined by Ali Mohammed Abushbak. He is an independent Palestinian researcher, and he joins us live from Cairo in Egypt. Ali, Donald Trump says that the recognition of Palestine from that of the United Kingdom, Canada, Australia and others is a reward for Hamas. Is the US president correct?
Thank you, Thomas, for having me. The thing is, This is one of the Israelis' propaganda, and Donald Trump, he's impacted by this propaganda. It's a word for the international justice. It's a word for the international law, also for the desperate civilians and for the refugee entire the world. As you know, Thomas, there is a 6 million refugee entire the world, Palestinian refugee entire the world, and there is only around 5 million. They are in Palestinian territories, like 3 million in West Bank and 2 million in Gaza, and more than 2 million inside Israel. So this is a word for the international justice. So I guess Donald Trump, he impacted by the propaganda of Israel, especially Benjamin Netanyahu and Smotrich and Ben-Gvir. Ben-Gvir, yes, the day before yesterday, he was calling for arresting the Palestinian president Mahmoud Abbas on the media channel and its own Israelis media channel. Also, the Israelis media outlets described the wave of international recognition for the Palestinian statehood as a tsunami. So the thing is, nowadays we are witnessing Israeli. It's like a historic, like a historical interaction with the international community and with the justice of the international community. By the way, also, Thomas, this recognition, it will not halt the war in Gaza. It will not stop the Israeli settlement, despite it's illegal according to the international law, according to the United Nations also resolution 3224. So it's considered that Israeli settlement in the Palestinian territory is illegal. Still, Israel establishing the settlement in Palestinian territories, and still Israel arresting the civilians in West Bank. Still Israel is ongoing with its war in Gaza under the claim of the releasing the hostages or the captive in Gaza. Despite that, under the military pressure, Israel didn't release except just only 4 hostages out of 200 hostages. So this is, we are among a very tough atmosphere and complicated. And this is nowadays, it's clear for the international and for the audience and public opinion that America, it's never been mediating between Palestinian and Israel conflict. Still, it's a bias with Israel and taking a stand to the Israel. So that's making the conflict more complicated, making the situation on the ground, it's without any kind of solution, since the United States supporting the Israel in its ongoing war. A recognition, it will not hold the war until unless there is no peeling a sanction on Israel and peeling the pressure on Israel to stop the war by, boycotting Israel and by stop sending or selling the weapon and sending the weapon to the Israel.
Yes, Ali, do stay with us. We have some further related developments coming out of the United Nations General Assembly. As it does progress, different reactions have come in from world leaders on the recognition of the Palestinian state. The United States continued to criticize the move and also globalist institutions in his UN General Assembly speech, while highlighting the renewal of American strength around the world. Let's take a listen in to what White House spokeswoman Caroline Leavitt said.
As for all of these Western nations that are recognizing a Palestinian state, the president has been very clear. He disagrees with this decision. He spoke about that in the UK, standing right next to his friend, Prime Minister Starmer, and he feels this does not do anything to release the hostages, which is the primary goal right now in Gaza, does nothing to end this conflict and bring this war to a close. And frankly, he believes it's a reward to Hamas. So he believes these decisions are just more talk and not enough action from some of our friends and allies. And I think you'll hear him talk about that tomorrow at the UN.
Meanwhile, Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney spoke in New York on Monday, emphasising Canada's support for the state of Palestine and the importance of adapting to the new global economy. He also acknowledged the limited impact of recognition, noting it does little to change the situation on the ground.
Well, I think the first thing to say is this is consistent with our policy since 1947. Every Canadian government, whether of whatever political stripe, has supported a two-state solution, as many other countries have. What we have been seeing, first because of the acts of these heinous acts of Hamas, but then other in terms of response, is that prospect is receding before our eyes. Okay, so the idea of waiting until all the conditions are in place for a free and viable Palestinian state committed to peace and security side by side with the state of Israel, as what I've called a Zionist Palestinian state, which is what we want. Those conditions being in place, keeping the concept there on the shelf, when it is the avowed policy of the Israeli government that there will never be a Palestinian state.
Meanwhile, Britain has updated its foreign travel advice to list Palestine for the first time, replacing occupied Palestinian territories, while several other Western nations have extended recognition, prompting fury from Israel. Palestinian refugees in Lebanon, Jordan and Syria have welcomed the move, but said it was not enough, calling it just talk without tangible action to end Israeli attacks in Gaza. Let's listen in to what a few refugees had to say.
ونحن بنعتبر انه بريطانيا لما اعترفت بدولة فلسطين هو اعتذار وعد بالفور، لانه هذا الاعتذار ولازم علنا يعتذروا على الظلم اللي اعطوا للكيان الصهيوني الدولي بما يسمى دولي، ونحن بنقول انه هذا انجاز كبير.
Ali, this of course comes at a time of the ongoing war in Gaza and annexation from an occupation of Israelis in the West Bank. Some people say that the international community is not doing enough to push for a two-state solution, even though it is in a lot of the interest of the countries that advocate for it. How can countries do more, and which countries are which countries should be doing more here?
Thomas, nothing will stop Israel. The international community, whether also the United Nations, also they are confirming for the ceasefire to stop the war in Gaza, the Israelis' war. But no one can stop Israel. Everyone condemned the Israelis' offensive of Gaza City, but also no one can stop the Benjamin Netanyahu's plan. No one can hold the war in Gaza. Also, it's worth mentioning that, Thomas, who resumed the war in Gaza? Who Benjamin Netanyahu during the mid of January 2025, there is a ceasefire, but who resumed the war in Gaza in the mid of March? Benjamin Netanyahu, despite the Hamas didn't break the ceasefire deal with Israel and releasing the hostages according to that deal. So Benjamin Netanyahu, he doesn't want to hold the war for his. All the Israeli community realized that Benjamin Netanyahu's war waging this war for his own benefit, for his power in Israel. So what is required from the international community to enhance the Palestinian Authority in West Bank, and also all the international community confirmed there is no future for Hamas in Palestinian statehood. Despite that, Benjamin Netanyahu and Donald Trump think this is a word for all. It's clear the statement of the international community. Hamas has no future in Gaza, in Palestine. Hamas no has any kind of a future.
Yes, Ali Bushback. Thank you.
The civilian.
I believe we have some network issues with Ali there. Hopefully he joins us back for the further updates. We move on, but stay in the region where we have some reactions, where Israel's ambassador Danny Danon to the United Nations has criticised the recognition of Palestine. Danon's remarks came just before France recognised a Palestinian state, where Danon called it a charade. The ambassador also said that the war will continue until hostages are freed and Hamas is defeated. Let's take a listen to his statements.
and the Israel will not participate in this charade. We will not enter the GA hall, and we will not take part in this.
Meanwhile, the brother of an Israeli hostage has also criticized the growing recognition. He has said that the timing of the move emboldens Hamas and undermines efforts to secure the release of hostages held in Gaza. He also said that the Hamas leadership are celebrating the recognition, which means it is a wrong step. Let's take a listen.
We can see that every time that Hamas feels that his narrative is getting stronger and that Israel image is collapsing in the world, we see that they pull away from negotiations. It gives them more strength. It encourages them to continue this war, to continue holding hostage my brother Aviatar, dozens of other hostages, and also the Gazans themselves.
Ali, what is your response to the fact that this move emboldens Hamas more? We just heard from a former Hamas hostage that Hamas is celebrating at this move from Western countries recognizing Palestine as a state.
Thomas, I don't know what should I say, but who was bombing the Hamas delegation in Qatar? Who doesn't want to hold the war? Israel on the ground doesn't want to stop the war. Hamas, I mentioned many times that the hostages in Hamas, it's a barrier for Hamas. It's a heavy duty for Hamas to secure them and to keep them alive. And I said it's a strong card for Hamas in the negotiation and for holding the war. Hamas, it's clear. I'm not defending Hamas. I said in Gaza City, if there is a establishing for a statehood in Gaza and West Bank, no one will accept Hamas again. It's a very clear for the Palestinian. I confirm you, Hamas has no future in Palestinian statehood, even officially and also publicly, from the opinion, also the public opinion. There is no one will accept Hamas. But the thing is, this is a word for the right for the Palestinian to establish their statehood. Palestinians since past 1 decade, several decades, 70 years, they are struggling for their rights. And they are struggling to stop the Israeli settlement project in West Bank, and Palestinian in Gaza, they were suffering from the Israeli siege. So the thing is, this is this is a word for the right. Hamas has no exist in Palestine. In West Bank, Hamas no any practice, any active in West Bank, but still Israel has a several of excusing, but this is the fail for the Israeli diplomacy. They don't want to accept it. That's it. They couldn't hold the war. According to the Israelis media outlets, it's a tsunami for the recognizing of Palestinian state. They couldn't stop it, despite they have a several of power. They have a several of lobbies in international community, but they couldn't stop it. But until analysts, it's meaningless on the ground. This recognition will not stop the Israelis' occupation in Palestinian territories. They will not stop the war in Gaza. They will not stop annexation in West Bank.
Yes.
So all the Palestinian right, it's just only like a mirage.
Ali Abushbak, thank you very much for joining us here in the program. It's always a pleasure to talk to you. We stay in the region next, where Iran's Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi has met Rafael Grossi, the head of the International Atomic Energy Agency, in New York, and said that he will meet with his European counterpart on the sidelines of the UN General Assembly to discuss Tehran's nuclear program. The meeting comes as Araghchi had recently said that Iran insists diplomacy is the only way to resolve the nuclear dispute with the West. Araghchi had said that Iran would not respond to language of pressure and threats. Let's take a listen.
در جریان سفر به نیویورک من با عمده وزرای خارجه اروپایی دیدار خواهم کرد، با آقای گروسی امروز دیدار خواهم کرد، در خصوص جزئیات صحبت خواهم کرد. به هر حال مقطعی هست که باید تصمیم بگیرن طرف‌های مقابل که آیا همکاری رو انتخاب میکنند یا تقابل رو. جمهوری اسلامی ایران رو در مواقع مختلف امتحان کردن، میدانند که ما به زبان فشار و تهدید پاسخگو نیستیم، ولی به زبان کرامت، به زبان احترام ما پاسخ مقتضی خواهیم داد. یک راه حل اگر وجود داشته باشه فقط راه حل دیپلماتیک است. امیدوار هستم که در رایزنی‌های این چند روز بشه به اون نقطه رسید. خب در غیر این صورت جمهوری اسلامی ایران اقداماتی رو که باید اتخاذ.
Meanwhile, before their meeting, Rafael Grossi had said their diplomatic efforts to resolve the dispute over Iran's nuclear program were at a difficult juncture. He also said that he hoped that the work between the nuclear agency and Iran would not suffer because of the snapback sanctions. Let's take a listen.
I am relatively optimistic that we can keep this framework of cooperation, this mutual understanding, in spite of external factors like, if this happens, the reactivation of sanctions. But it's obviously quite a difficult juncture. It's a very difficult situation we are facing right now. We certainly hope that the work between the agency and Iran is not going to suffer from other situations, namely the activation of the snapback mechanism, which, as you know, means that sanctions will be reinstated.
We're now joined by Gautam Mukherjee. He's a senior journalist. He joins us live from New Delhi. Gautam, always a pleasure to talk to you. What barriers does the IAEA face in its diplomacy with Tehran, Gautam?
Well, as far as Iran is concerned, it says that its nuclear program is open to inspection. It is not trying to make a nuclear weapon, and it is well within its rights to proceed with its nuclear program as long as it is for peaceful purposes, namely energy, that is electricity and power. Now, the whole thing has been cast by Israel and to a certain extent the United States as a less than truthful position, because the Iranians have been, according to their intelligence reports, refining the uranium to a percentage required for nuclear weapons, which is far higher than what you need for electricity and nuclear power. So this is a conundrum. They have also been attacked, and the IAEA will be trying to determine whether their centrifuges, which were in the attack area, have been destroyed, and whether there are other centrifuges elsewhere that can help them move ahead with a clandestine nuclear weapons program. So talks are going on, but the suspicions remain.
Yes, indeed, Gautam. Do stay with us. We will, of course, bring you all the updates from those negotiations with Iran as we get them. But we have some news coming out of the White House next, where it has confirmed it has received a letter from Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro seeking direct talks with President Trump after a US strike on a Venezuelan boat allegedly carrying drug traffickers. However, the Trump administration dismissed Maduro's request, calling the letter full of lies and reaffirming its stance that his regime is illegitimate. The US has deployed 8 warships and a submarine to the Caribbean for an anti-drug operation which Venezuela fears could lead to military action. US forces have destroyed 3 Venezuelan drug boats, killing over a dozen people. Some Venezuelan opposition leaders support the US military presence, hoping it will push Maduro out, while others, like Henrik Capriles, argue for a political solution instead of military intervention. Meanwhile, Maduro's defense minister accuses the US of waging an undeclared war. We're now joined by Gautam Mukherjee. Once again.
According to media reports, Maduro has sent a letter to President Trump, but President Trump avoided saying whether he has read it. Did he receive it?
We have seen this letter. Frankly, I think there were a lot of lies that were repeated by Maduro in that letter, and the administration's position on Venezuela has not changed. We view the Maduro regime as illegitimate, and the president has clearly shown that he's willing to use any and all means necessary to stop the illegal trafficking of deadly drugs from the Venezuelan regime into the United States of America.
Okay, we're now once again joined by Gautam Mukherjee. Gautam, could you describe for us the relationship between the United States and Venezuela, and of course between the two men at the center of it, Nicolas Maduro and Donald Trump?
Well, Donald Trump has taken a very hostile attitude to Maduro. And while this is ostensibly about drug running, which, Trump has placed himself squarely against, because much of these narcotics arrive in the United States and are consumed by young people, destroying their lives. So he is very keen to stop that. But at the same time, I think he's after some kind of regime change in Venezuela in order to get hold of its extensive oil reserves. And Maduro's in the way. Maduro uses it for his own people and has a kind of a socialist distribution system to try and benefit as many people. This has weakened the Venezuelan economy because if you keep giving away a great deal of your money without generating any, then your economy is not going to survive. This is the conundrum, the difficulty with socialism, and has happened in country after country where the welfare has run away with the economy.
Yes.
However, it remains to be seen whether America will actually attack Venezuela on its territory, because again, Trump is very reluctant to put American boots on the ground and suffer the consequences in terms of body bags coming back to the United States. So as long as this works out via aerial bombardment, blockades, and the like, this tension will continue. But
Yes.
it's very unlikely that America will actually invade Venezuela, despite the carrot of trying to seize the Venezuelan oil. If, however, he can bring about a regime change and place somebody in Maduro's place who is more amenable to dealing with the American oil corporations, then objectives are squarely met.
Yes.
The rest is largely propaganda. America's just barking at it.
Yes, Gautam Mukherjee, thank you very much for your insight. It's always a pleasure to talk to you and have you on the program. We now move back on over to the United States, where White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt has said that President Donald Trump will sign a TikTok deal later this week, declining to specify the transactional value or name all of the parties involved. She said that the agreement would leave TikTok majority ownership to US investors and overseen by a board with extensive national security and cybersecurity credentials. Let's listen in to what Caroline Leavitt, press secretary for the White House, has said on the deal.
So I don't have a specific number for you, nor am I going to confirm the specific individuals and entities in the deal, Akela, but I do have several details I'm happy to run through for all of you, and the president will be signing the deal, the official deal, later this week at some point. Under the terms of this deal, TikTok will be owned by a majority of American investors and controlled by a board of directors with extensive national security and cybersecurity credentials. In partnership with the U.S. government, Oracle will serve as TikTok's trusted security provider, and they will independently monitor the safety and data security of all U.S. user data on TikTok's platform. Americans' data will be stored securely in the United States without access.
Levitt also said that TikTok will remain globally interoperable, allowing US users to see content from other countries and vice versa, while offering no dollar figure for the deal. She projected that businesses using TikTok could generate as much as $178 billion in economic activity over the next 4 years. Let's listen in to what Caroline Levitt had to say.
All U.S. user data will be stored on servers operated by Oracle in the United States, protected from surveillance or interference by foreign adversaries. And the algorithm, I know this is a question many of you have had, will be secured, retrained, and operated in the United States outside of ByteDance's control. And TikTok will remain globally interoperable, meaning TikTok users in the U.S. will be able to see videos posted by users in other countries and vice versa. While I don't have a number on the specific deal, we do expect that thanks to the president's leadership and the securement of this historic deal, businesses using TikTok will generate as much as $178 billion in economic activity within the U.S. over the next 4 years. So this is great news, not just for the millions of American youth who use TikTok. Their data will be safe and secure with this new deal. They'll continue to use this very fun app. But it's also great news for all of the small business owners who have really been able to make a living off of the use of TikTok.
We're now joined by retired Major General Sudak Karji. He's a senior geopolitical and strategic defense expert, and he joins us live from New Delhi. Thank you very much for joining us. Always a pleasure to talk to you, General G. What is the significance behind this? This has obviously been going on since Donald Trump was elected president once again, and it's finally come to a close, Major General. What is so important about this deal?
Thomas, good afternoon. Thank you for getting me to your show. First and foremost point that comes to my mind, geopolitically, there is a huge significance at the global level, and there is a significance at the regional. When I say regional, I mean the continent, the North American continent. At the global level, I personally feel that there is going to be some kind of a thaw between China and US. This is a issue which has been hanging fire for quite some time, and the fact that USA has been able to resolve it, address it squarely and boldly is a remarkable milestone. That is one point. Second point, that I have a fear in the mind. No matter how much of assurance is given, technology is always fraught with such kind of hidden agendas that not everything comes out into open initially. By and by, as we start handling it, go deeper into it, whether we are taking the issue of algorithm as one of the issues as taken for granted and issue resolved, the same algorithm may throw up new challenges, which I personally feel America should be mindful of. And third and most important thing is, it's a great milestone as far as Donald Trump is concerned, and he himself has admitted publicly in many rallies and addressing the people in USA that TikTok had come to his advantage. It actually played to meet his requirement during his election campaign and made very substantive contributions towards his galvanizing the people and towards the victory in the elections that he fought so vigorously in such a long time.
Yes, do stay with us, Major General G. We have some further geopolitical updates that you are discussing with us, and we go back to New York next, where US Secretary of State Marco Rubio has met Indian Minister of External Affairs S. Jaishankar on the sidelines of the UN General Assembly. This was their first in-person meeting since trade tensions arose over tariffs and a new $100,000 fee on H-1B visa applications, which heavily affect Indian nationals. The two discussed strengthening strategic cooperation in areas like trade, defense, energy, pharmaceuticals, and critical minerals. Rubio reiterated the critical importance of the India-US relationship, and Jaishankar emphasized the need for sustained engagement on these issues. In a statement, Rubio said they focused on generating prosperity for both nations. Jaishankar described the meeting as constructive, emphasizing ongoing dialogue. The two also agreed to continue working together on a free and open Indo-Pacific, including through the Quad. The meeting followed earlier discussions in Washington in July and in January. Additionally, the White House has announced that doctors may be exempt from the new H-1B visa fees, which have been a point of contention. This is what Indian students had to say on the new H-1B visa applications.
Shatter the dreams of Indians. Americans also don't realize also that it were the immigrants who made America great, and when it comes to providing services also here and there. Actually, they should know that Indians and Chinese, whoever, let's say the Asians, they provide the best workforce, because since those countries are populated. Also that, I don't know why Indians are targeting only the US. They should go to other countries also as well, right?
अगर आप वीज़ा के लिए अप्लाई करने की जो फ़ीस है वही बढ़ा देंगे तो काफ़ी सारे जो स्टूडेंट्स हैं जो अफोर्ड नहीं कर पाएंगे वो जा ही नहीं पाएंगे वहाँ, तो वो उस अपॉर्चुनिटी को भी अवेल नहीं कर पाएंगे। तो इसलिए मेरे ओपिनियन में तो ये गलत ही है, लेकिन उनका पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू भी ज़रूरी है कि वो ट्रम्प अपने कंट्री के हिसाब से लॉ बनाएंगे, अपनी कंट्री के को आगे रखने के लिए उस हिसाब से पॉलिसीज़ लेके आएंगे, तो वो उनके पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू से सही है। बट जो बाकी कंट्रीज़ हैं, जैसे जो ज़्यादातर मोस्टली लाइक इंडिया, जो वहाँ जाके स्टूडेंट्स काम करना चाहते हैं, जॉब अपॉर्चुनिटीज़ लेना चाहते हैं, उनके लिए ये बिल्कुल।
तो वहाँ जाने का ऑलरेडी इतना वो खर्चा है, फिर ऊपर से आप ये जो नई चीज़ आप बता रहे हो, इससे और जैसे कि वहाँ जाने का एक्सपेंस बढ़ता ही जा रहा है। तो मैंने तो अभी तक कोई प्लान नहीं किया, बट हाँ मेरे भाई बहन है वो प्लान कर रहे हैं, बट इस तरीके से तो उनके लिए भी एक डिसएडवांटेज हो गया कि इतना महंगे उस पर जाना पड़े उन्हें बाहर। तो
Okay, we're once again joined by Major General G to discuss this further. We've just heard from the students that might be affected by those H-1B visas, but let's turn to the diplomacy, Major General G. It seemed to be all smiles between Rubio and S. Jaishankar. However, tensions are of course underlying between them both. How do you think that meeting went, given the obvious imposition of those 50% tariffs and of course that substantial H-1B visa fine, which 75% of those affected are going to be Indians?
Yeah, Thomas, you made a couple of points. Let me first of all address about the talk between Mr. Rubio and Jaishankar. I think it's a very welcome development after a very harsh kind of a treatment extended by USA to India, though it may have been a very temporary period. But I'm glad and very happy and delighted to comment on an issue on which it has taken a turnaround from USA side. India has never responded to all such kind of offensive statements given by the officials of USA. So at least now they have gone back to the talking stage, one. Second, what would have they spoken? Firstly, in my view, the tariff would have been discussed. And I personally feel whatever little one is privy to, the second 25% which has been imposed on India, 25% tariff on account of buying oil from Russia. Let me also give a rejoinder and clarification. India, if at all it went to Russia to buy oil, it was at the behest of USA. It is on the request of USA that India had to go to Russia so as to stabilize the oil price. And second thing is, whatever oil India buys, it is at a capped price let down by the G7 leading economy. So third point that I wish to in one line is that the apprehension of H-1B visa, I think it is a very regressive. It is going to do extensive damage in the long run to USA. If we look back to 90s and factor and analyze as to why H-1B visa was introduced into USA, it was basically to bring in the excellent product, human resource from world over, so as that they could contribute towards the glory and the growth of USA. If the same element is being taken out to prevent and also protect the employment opportunities for its indigenous population, well, it is the take of USA, it is their loss, it will be a gain for other countries and India as such. Back to you, please.
Yes, Major General G, thank you very much for joining us, and thank you very much for watching. Well, that is all that we have time for. We at NewsX World will, of course, continue to bring you more news updates from around the world. Thank you for joining us.